Hey everybody, it's your old pal Steve Moore, owner of RUNMOORE, this fabulous brick and mortar running shop located in Westminster, Maryland. Today, we'll be talking about the New Balance 880 version 15. This bad boy is coming out in February of 2025, and this is an everyday mid-cushion trainer. Let's dive into some of the nitty-gritty specs on the 880. This guy is $140. On the men's side, it weighs 10.7 ounces, and on the women's, it's 8.4. This has a 40 millimeter high down to 34 millimeter stack height, which if you're doing your math at home means it's a 6 millimeter drop. This features New Balance's famous Fresh Foam X midsole, and it has a synthetic mesh upper. Okay, so before we chat more about the 880, if you haven't already, do me a favor, like and subscribe to our channel. It's a fun, free, easy way to support our shop. And of course, if you wanted to pick up an 880, we'll have a link down below. And if you enter a promo code RUNMORE, you'll save 10% on your order. Okay, so the 880. This has been like New Balance's tried and true mid-cushion shoe for years. This is their, their fresh foam, their proprietary midsole, their nice everyday soft trainer. And quite frankly, over the years, this shoe has kind of gotten a little bit stale. And not necessarily just this shoe. This whole category has kind of become like a little left behind. And for so long, this type of shoe was like the bread and butter of our entire industry. And like, it feels like the last couple years, these shoes have been left behind by other shoes, even from the same brands, even inside the same categories. But there's some stuff on the more runnable side of things that like you put it on compared to this shoe and they feel lighter and they feel bouncier, and this can sometimes feel a little bit clunky and like not as like exciting. So I feel like, New Balance really needed to make some changes, I think, because while the last 880 version 14 was for us a fantastic 880. It fit well, it felt great. Compared to other shoes in the category, we felt that version 14 was a tremendous 880. I just felt like for us, the sales that we used to see more frequent on this shoes, they just weren't quite there. Again, things were moving to other stuff inside the category, a lot of times still with New Balance. We found this shoe became almost more of a walker than a runner. And, you could always, of course, walk in your running shoes and vice versa, especially if a bear's attacking you and you needed to run. But this shoe became more prevalent for people that were just looking for like an everyday work shoe, walk around shoe, because, compared to other stuff in that same price point, it just didn't have the life to it. So then here comes version 15, and it's heavier and all the kind of stuff that like when you first think about like negatives on a shoe and you go, oh man, this thing got heavier. We're over an ounce heavier than what the predecessor was. And so usually like, that kind of does a big downside and such and all that. But I will say this is a shoe that had some big changes, that added weight, that got significantly better in my opinion. And again, we really liked version 14. One of the things that changed right away is the drop change. And New Balance has always been a pretty tried and true shoe with a pretty high aggressive heel to toe drop. And the 880 has sort of just been checking down. So now to see a 6 millimeter 880, that's a pretty big difference from where we usually are. Also, in some of the earlier versions of 880s, we almost always like told people you had to size up. Maybe, people that were in standard widths maybe had to jump to a wide. And version 14 was the first 880 that we felt, at least for us, was fitting much more true to size. And I would say version 15 is continuing that it fits pretty true to size. Maybe like an eighth of a size short, but compared to like versions 10, 11, 12, 13, this 880 fits much better. It also has much more depth to it. Again, that was something that I think people have, that preconceived notion that all New Balance shoes are very wide, and that's just simply not the case. Especially like compared to stuff like in the Super Comp line or the Rebel, which I always find the new versions fit a little more wide and a little more roomy. The 880, even though a lot of people used it as like a walking shoe, or like people that were maybe newer into running that didn't want all the fancy newfangled foams and midsoles, I always found it interesting that shoe ran shorter and narrower. But this seems like it's done a much better job of fitting truer to size, and the volume on it is much better. The other thing right out of the gate, obviously we've added weight, so you figure, okay, so where did we add the weight? Well, they added 3 millimeters of stack height. So we went from 37 millimeters to 40 millimeters on the high end. And you can feel it right away. Again, I was doing my usual hanging around in two different shoes like a dope. You can immediately feel how much more plush this version is. It has really, I've been wearing it for a couple days now, and I just found myself coming into a bunch of shoes to review, and this has been the shoe that I have pulled more frequently. Now, I will say, not to go run in necessarily, because again, it's great. It's the best 880 I've had. I just, compared to other stuff in my category, I might not go run in this shoe just because there's some other fun stuff out there. And now it does feel a little bit heavier, but as far as just putting it on, it's spectacular. One of the other things I noticed right away between the two is they widen the base out. And not that I felt like I was missing some stability in the 880, but this now definitely feels a little more stable through the forefoot. You know, when they changed the 860 version 14 and made it just a medial support shoe, you know, there were people that had used to use the 860 for some lateral support, and now that the 860 is only a medial support shoe, it's not great for somebody who's supinate. So I'm hoping you're following along with that. So now the 880 is an even better option for somebody who likes an everyday cushion shoe who might supinate. And also with the wider base, it's fine for somebody with just a little bit of pronation issues on the medial side. It's just like, we sometimes call this a stable neutral shoe, and this shoe is even more of that now. It's not like a straight last, but it is an excellent stable neutral shoe. So what that means to me is any slight movement, great. Anything right down the middle, even better. This shoe fits well, it feels super plush, they added cushion around the collar, so all those things, like, to me totally justifies why obviously we added weight, we added cushion, we added width, we added volume, we added cushion. It weighs a little bit more. And now, like, if I was looking for a shoe to wear around the shop all day, like, this is gonna be very high on my list. I like the 6mm drop. I love the look of this shoe. Even though I think this shoe is drastically improved, for just a runner perspective, it might not be the first shoe on my repertoire. Obviously, adding cushion, if you were somebody who's just ride or die with the 880s, nothing wrong with that. I think you'll find this shoe can now even push the distance a little bit longer by adding the cushion to it. And even by lowering the heel, it just feels a little bit more efficient. Overall, just a little bit more shoe. And yeah, we added some weight, but it's not for lack of, like, not for nothing, as the kids would say. And now, interestingly enough, for our mid-cushion shoe, we're comparing it to the 1080, which is now our max cushion shoe from New Balance. The 880 actually weighs more. So we have a mid-cushion shoe and a max cushion shoe, and it's one of those times where the 880, the mid-cushion, weighs more, but you know, we're not much, 2/10 of an ounce based on my 11.5 sizing, but enough that should be brought up, because now we've totally drastically changed the shoe and where it falls online on weight and cushion compared to other shoes in the New Balance category. So that's my thoughts on the New Balance 880. We're very excited about this. I'm so glad to have it early and to be walking around the shop in it. Very much like it. If you have any questions on this, feel free to leave it down below. We'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. And if you wanted to purchase this fine product, we'll have a link down below. Enter promo code RUNMOORE and you'll save 10%. And if you find yourself in the greater Westminster, Maryland area, and why wouldn't you stop on by and say hello? There's a good chance you'll catch me while you're here. Happy running, happy everything. We'll see you around town.